To the left, we have the Sony Bravia 8 Mark II. To the right, we have the Samsung S95F. And we're going to be talking about some more differences between these two displays because, of course, we are trying to find the ultimate display for our video watching preferences and everything in between. And all I can say is they are incredibly similar after a recent adjustment and basically like calibration off, if you will. You know how you have shoot offs? Well, I did a calibration off. Basically, I used the Samsung S95F as a reference monitor for the things I didn't like about the Sony. And then I used a Sony as a reference monitor for the things I didn't like about the Samsung. And where we are today is what we are going to talk about. So, smack a like on this video, subscribe if you like this kind of content, and let's dive right on in. So to do this, I'm going to go back to that lovely demo in the beginning here that I used in the last video. This shows a lot, but the main thing it's going to show is contrast went up substantially on the Samsung S95F. Now, this is what happens when you don't go for, again, using every ounce of the brightness that the Samsung can offer, and you tone it down a bit. It gets impressive. And I mean fucking impressive. Look at the 3D aisle right now. The warm tones are popping in right. Everything just feels very full-bodied and very wonderful. Sony, though, has great highlights as well. In this example, they both look beautiful. I do find that Sony tends to have more vivid color from time to time, but Samsung also in an example like now can pull ahead in terms of skin tones. So again, they get very inconsistent as far as which one would maintain a certain position. And I think that's why I have the biggest problem with the king of all TV moniker given to the Sony. Because look at the Samsung now. It's leagues better. But again, if you watch another scene, like now, it'll switch and now the flowers look so much better over here. This is my problem. You cannot slap generalities or badges on things when they perform this closely. Right? And I think it's important to note that we're not talking about, massive differences. We're talking about like these little differences that add up over time and become massive differences. It's like a chip away effect. You could take a ton of damage if you keep stacking on small numbers. Well, this is the same exact concept. Right now, both of these TVs look absolutely beautiful, but there are a couple behaviors that I want to talk about now. Sony is black crushing. That's how they're achieving their contrast this year. And if you don't like Black Crush, you're not going to like the Sony because you either have to have such a small degree of contrast that it is a joke, or you have to Black Crush and get that contrast and just be okay with it. Because I've found more consistently a massive level of Black Crush on the Sony. You can escape it again by flattening everything out. But if you don't want a flat image, literally, hear me on this. If you don't want a flat image, this TV is not going to work for you. It's not. If you don't want a flat TV and you want contrast, you're going to have to sacrifice some of those shadow details. You just are. If you're not willing to do that, then Samsung's your guy. Now, Samsung starts off so fucking flat that when you try to darken it up, you almost always want for extra darkness. Now, on the recent firmware on the Samsung, I believe this has been fixed a bit, because I'm not noticing as much flatness when I use all the ability I have out of the television to get a darker image. Later on, we will go over the firmware that I'm on, but just take a look at this image right now between both of these. Just please, just humor me. One's matte screen, one's glossy. We've heard so much jargon, tech term, nonsense, spec dumping, that at the end of the day, there's almost no room for the actual details about these TVs. Almost. But when you look at them side by side, it becomes very clear. I mean, they're doing very different things. And I don't think either one really, if I'm being very honest, is wrong in their approach. Because the more time I spend with the Bravia 8 Mark II, I am equally able to enjoy it, fall in love with that picture, the way I'm able to fall in love with the picture that Samsung's created. It's just a different approach. Sony goes for the Judd Voss method, which while I don't like blue on everything, you can warm up the image. You can't warm up everything about the image, so you lack warmth all around when you get to certain colors like gray and those kind of areas, but it doesn't destroy the image to a point where it's pointless. The Samsung is flat. I mean, you got to work really hard to get some contrast out of the fucking thing. And then you get to the point where, again, now you start looking at motion. Sony by far has the worst motion, comparatively to the Samsung S95F. If we're getting that out of the way, that's a fact. Looking at it, experiencing it, it's just, yeah, That it is what it is there. But that being said, though, I mean, both of these displays are beautiful. And I think Sony actually has a really good answer this year when you talk about color. Particularly when you talk about the vividness of the color. I think they're doing a good job with vividness. Accuracy, no. I think Samsung has them beat. The Pantone validated colors look far more true to life and what we would actually see with our real eyes. And that's where I kind of am shocked that Samsung actually beat Sony this year for accuracy of color. When we talk about overall, about across every medium, every type of content piece, yeah, Samsung definitely beat Sony for color this year. And if you're not believing that, again, hopefully this will show you that, because it's very clear to me. While Sony has moments of good contrast and good color, good skin tones, they sometimes fall short too. Again, with just trying to make things overly vibrant when they don't need to be. And that's where my issue with Sony comes in. It's like they have a technology called precision color mapping. I don't know if they're using it here or not, but I remember what it used to look like on the Sony X900E. Samsung would never be able to touch that kind of color quality if Sony actually put that effort in my opinion. Again, I don't know what they have as far as their precision color mapping technology, if they've upgraded it, but seeing how they're getting beaten by Samsung, at the very least we can admit that when you come to color accuracy, they've got a lot of readjusting to do. Again, this is nitpicking. Again, I'll say again, this is nitpicking. Because if you are rocking my settings on both of these TVs, you are not going to see this. You're not. You're not going to look at this and be like, oh, the Sony looks like shit. You're going to be like, wow, this is one of the best pictures I've ever seen in my entire life. This is fucking rad. You are. You're going to love what you see. If you go to the Samsung and you look at the Samsung, you're like, damn, the brightness, the highlights, the color, the motion. This is a very nice TV. You're going to love what you see on the Samsung. You're going to love both of these TVs. And I don't hear enough people talking about that. I think we get so caught up in trying to pick a definitive winner that we start almost screwing over each other in that process too. So I wanted to bring a different kind of idea or approach to these televisions because, again, it's not one size fits all. They both have a beautiful picture, and I think it will depend on what you watch, how you watch it, what you do, how you do it, that determines whether or not one television is going to be good over another. That's just the truth. If you watch a lot more anime, then you're going to want to watch the Samsung S95F. It's just going to be better for anime. If you're watching more movie type content with a lot of skin tones, then you're going to want to watch the Sony. Especially that scene, my favorite scene in Guardians of the Galaxy where Groot has the fireflies. It's going to look better on the Sony because Sony does really good with black backgrounds and exhibiting very vibrant color on those black backgrounds. That's one of their strongest suits. Yes, all OLEDs have that kind of quality, but again, some do it better, and that's what Sony does better. If you like crystal clear clarity and tack sharp picture quality, you're going to have to go with the Samsung. That's just what it does differently, what it does better. And by going back and forth and looking at each strength and each weakness, by the way, we managed to get that pasta looking good on the Sony. I don't know if you guys noticed that. It's something that you're going to have to battle between. And you're going to have to really, really battle and fight constantly. I'll try to pause it right here just so you can look at pasta. I mean, I've damn near got it to the level of the Samsung. But therein lies the other part of this. Samsung is at another level when you talk about that contrast and that clarity. So, again, kind of doesn't matter how you look at it. I mean, it's all preferential. Like, if I pause right here and I look at the noodles, Samsung has noodles I've seen before. It looks very realistic. But Sony is not far behind at all. They're very close, and they're right in the same ballpark. And many people at a glance would say they're very identical until you see that just amazing contrast on the Samsung that's very obvious for a trained eye. And that's the thing. Not everybody has a trained eye. Some people are going to look at this and be like, I mean, they both look good. What are you talking about? Why are we even comparing two great looking TVs? I mean, buy either one and be happy. Because again, it comes down literally to the type of content. So you see how demo content can look so very different? Well, it's the same thing again, like I was saying for animated content. What Samsung and their strong suit is finding those small highlights, honing in, tightening in on those fucking highlights and making you really feel your content. What Sony's good for is giving you vivid, very vibrant color, even if it's not totally true to life and accurate, if I'm being honest. that will make you say, wow, this is so much fun to deal with. The black crush on the Sony, though, that is a problem. I'm not a fan of that. I'll show you what I'm talking about as far as black crush and also colors with Demon Slayer, okay? Here are some screens to show you. And if you look at the screenshots, look at the color on the screen. You can clearly see the skin tones right here in Muzan Kibutsuchi. Very obvious that the warm tones are there on the Samsung, missing from the Sony. That's the first red flag. The other thing is, again, you look at scenes like this, very obviously a warmer representation of real skin tone happening, where again, on the Sony, it's just a bit bluer and cooler, chilled off by example. It gets to the point where the Sony does tend to perform more like a WOLED, especially something like the LG C5. It performs a lot closer to that in terms of color quality. Again, it's not in every example, but it's in most examples. Examples like now, the purples look way better than what Samsung's offering. Samsung now is washing out and looking pale. So again, don't hear this and think we're just beating up on the Sony and they have nothing to offer. Again, another win for the Sony to the left. Again, when you get closer to that black color on a black background, Sony is going to illuminate way better. Again, they lack shadow detail though, and that can be felt in scenes like this, where you're supposed to have smoke and rubble and dust and all that stuff kicking up. It just looks better on the Samsung, and you're going to get more of that impact out of Samsung. Albeit, again, back and forth trading, right? It depends on what you're looking for. If you like highlights, the Samsung in this image is going to be better. If you like contrast and black levels and vibrant color, Sony's giving you all of that. So then, what is the takeaway? I think the takeaway here is, depending on what you're watching, you are going to have to arrive at a very different answer. And again, if we look, I'll just go ahead and open up my camera's, try to raise this a bit so you can see what I'm talking about. And just the level of shadow detail that the Samsung has, the Sony just is crushing too much. It just is. If you want that level of contrast, you have to crush. And there's no two ways about that. And I wish there was. Hear me on this. I really do wish there was a way to get around that. But unfortunately, at this point in time, there just isn't. And again, Samsung consistently will look more washed in examples like this, where you have a lot of contrast, like very bright and very dark. They're going to wash. Sony's going to look darker. But again, when they get to the shadow detail scenes, they're going to crush, like now, again. Where Samsung just has the better shadow detail. Like, you can make out a lot more. And I mean a lot more detail. That's just what I've seen. Again, there's always a way you can flatten out the Sony, but then the picture would be less impressive, and then it wouldn't be at its peak performance. So you kind of have to pick and choose. And again, I'm not doing anything to make the Sony look bad. If we run back that last scene, and I show you just a little bit of what's going on under the hood, black level is set to 50, okay? That's as good as it is. Medium on black adjust is not going to change your shadow detail. You see, it had no effect on the shadow detail. Now, you can turn off contrast enhancer, but that also, as you see, has no effect on shadow detail. So you can turn off contrast enhancer, you can turn off black detail, and you can be at 50 on the black level, and it will still look this fucking bad. So that's why I tell you, I mean, literally, it doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter how you try to go about it. There's just no way that you're going to be able to get everything that you need out of the Sony. Where Samsung, it doesn't have that problem. It's not crushing. And that's why I try to explain this as clearly as I can, to show you I'm not doing anything to it to make it look bad. It just looks bad for certain things, and consistent shadow detail is definitely one of them on the Sony. Now again, that doesn't mean it's all bad and like it's worthless. Like, again, look at this scene. This is gorgeous on the Sony. Beats the Samsung by a lot. I mean, it's gorgeous. But again, you'll have to really get to this point where you get tired of the back and forth too, if I'm being honest. Because it is such a back and forth battle that it's like, I'm not gonna lie, it's fucking exhausting. It's like, okay, well, Sony's pulling ahead. Now Samsung's pulling ahead. Now, who's pulling ahead again? Oh, wait. And then you gotta keep going back and forth and back and forth. And honestly, who really wants to be doing that? That's my thing. Like, I don't know who really wants to be doing like the whole back and forth, trying to like grab your remote, get more shadow detail than what you'll ever have. Like in this example, Samsung has the proper level of shadow detail. Sony is just crushed. But Sony has the better skin tones. So you see what I mean when I say it's a double-edged sword? Sony has way better skin tones in the example. Samsung has way better contrast as far as like clarity and the separation of, light to dark. It looks a lot more crystal-esque. Very crystal clear is what I'd give it. but the color goes to Sony in this example. It also has good contrast as well, so you really don't really notice that many differences. I mean, the initial impact goes to the Sony. You're like, wow, that's very beautiful. But it does it really does feel like the Sony is a lot more like in the league of like a plasma with the way that it black crushes, if I'm being honest. It feels like plasma-esque from what I remember back in that day. Now again, that might not be a bad thing to everybody. Some people might not mind that. So you have to kind of, pick your poison, see what you're comfortable with, what you're good with, what you're not, and then also let that kind of roll too. Me personally, I think both are good TVs. I just think the Samsung has it a little bit more put together. And because it's a bit more put together, that's where I personally gravitate. That's where I personally would say you're going to get the better image, better brightness by far, better clarity, better option as far as how you hook up your display. That part is better. Now we got to test again the gaming aspect of it, particularly PC, because I know Samsung with the S95F is total shit for PC gaming, being very honest with you, because you can't rename the input, so you're stuck in game mode all the time, or you're stuck in PC mode all the time. Only 2 modes. That's bullshit. You need access to all the modes regardless of how they think or feel. You need. I mean, the S95D did it. I don't know why the S95F can't do it. I think it's horseshit. But at the same time, I think we owe it to ourselves to see what Sony can do for that, and we will. But again, at face value, I don't know many people that are going to do a review like this and a comparison like this and really dig in and see, like now. Sony's just black crushing. It is. It fucking is. I mean, look at how badly it's black crushing. I'll try to open up my lens a bit and just show you some of the shadow detail. You have all the shadow detail here. The Sony is so dark and so crushed out, and you saw what was on. I'm not really enhancing anything. I mean, it crushes so badly because that's just the inclination, the proclivity that this thing has. It's inclined to do so. I mean, again, our picture preset that we're in is in vivid. We can go to standard and achieve better shadow detail, but the image by far would be less impressive. So here's the next part of this. If you want beautiful contrast and beautiful color, you got to accept Black Crush. Otherwise, buckle up, Buttercup. Get ready for what you're about to see. It's going to be pretty bad. And I'm trying to be nice about it, but it will be pretty bad as far as like the kind of slaughter that it ends up being. And again, you don't expect it to be that big of a slaughter, but it is. And we'll go back to that first example. You see what I mean? Now it looks like I didn't do fuck all to the Samsung or to the Sony. And the Sony looks way worse by comparison, by a lot. Look at the contrast coming off to the Samsung. So again, this is to give you that shadow detail back. And this is what I mean. You have to pick and choose depending on the preset. Samsung's not making me pick and choose. I don't keep grabbing my remote. I don't keep trying to adjust the shadows. I don't keep trying to. It's just there. They got it. They got it. The image is down. It's looking good. And you're seeing very clearly what I'm talking about. I know you can see this. The immense amount of contrast coming off of that's just missing here. Sony's generality for their picture, pause right here, is flat. I mean, it really is. Their mode, the way they go about things, it's just flat this year. And it gets worse if we go into other picture presets. This is if we use cinema. This is what I've made. So you're seeing a big difference between their cinema mode and what I've made. Okay, but then this is their professional mode. It's just damn dim. Then you have calm. It's just blue and flat. And then there's photo mode, which is just blue and bright. Then you have IMAX enhanced mode. I tried to do some work in here. It looks a little bit better, so maybe we can find something here. But you get what I'm saying. I'll rock IMAX enhanced mode because it looks better than the standard mode did look. So let's do that. Still not approaching Samsung levels of contrast. At all. Like literally at all. Samsung is running so far away. And this is why I tell you, like, you're only saving grace for the Sony to get the same level of pop, shock, and awe and beauty out of the picture is if you go to freaking, I gotta lower it down, it's clipping, is if you go to freaking Vivid. And Vivid mode has a black crushing problem. And this is what I meant in my last video when I said the Samsung, or rather the Sony, is just it's not consistent. It's really not consistent. And I don't like that it's not consistent because I can see where there is a beautiful picture there. And nothing is more irritating than, you're seeing it you know it has the potential to do better than it's doing, and it's just not doing what you at all thought it was going to do. I'll go back to this demo and just show you guys something that everybody uses on all their videos. Look at the differences. Samsung is three-dimensional as fuck right now. It's destroying and slaughtering Sony processing on a massive scale when we talk about if you don't use vivid mode. You'll bridge the gap if you're in vivid mode, but you'll have Black Crush. So now here's the problem. Either you accept Sony with more washed out color, and well, not more washed out, kind of more washed out color, just not as vibrant, not as vivid as it was in vivid, obviously, but it looks more diluted for sure by the comparison I'm showing you here. You know, but you'll get better shadow detail for it, right? Or you go to vivid and then you get a better, more contrasty image that pops more, but it crushes everything. And they need balance. That's the word I would use for Sony. They need to, I don't know, they need to become Libras or something. Become a scale, get some balance in your life. Because they don't have it, okay? And the problem that I'm having is that Samsung is just clearly better on a lot of examples. And there's just, honest to goodness, no real way any real reviewer who's doing the due diligence, who's going through multiple content pieces, who's using multiple picture presets, could have done this and arrived at Sony as the king. Because it's doing too much wrong. It does a lot of good things, but you have to sacrifice a shit ton of picture quality on the Sony this year. And honestly, this is kind of new territory where we have to start sacrificing a lot on our Sony TVs. Make no mistake, we weren't sacrificing like this a couple years ago. I mean, it was just, palatable at least. This isn't even palatable. This is just them taking a piss. And I'm going to be one of the only people to tell you that Sony is just taking a piss this year. They just are. They're not putting their best foot forward. They're not actually trying. They're just fucking lazy, if I'm being totally honest with you. And the way I see that is look at the contrast on the Samsung right now. Both are quantum dot OLEDs. Why is this possible and why is this happening? Literally, why is this happening? This is the IMAX enhanced mode, okay? We'll go back to the standard mode to see if it changes, okay? Let's go to our picture preset. We're going to go to the standard mode. Okay, by the way, all the other modes leading up here, very blue, very shitty. Okay, now we're in the standard mode. And look how it does.
Please clarify your request.
Fucking Google always listening. And you can clearly see what I'm talking about, right? I believe it's clear. You can clearly see that Samsung is just outpacing Sony. Okay, well then let's go ahead and put it back in vivid mode and see what happens then. Now in vivid mode, you see what I mean? Now it looks about the same. So the moral of the story is if you want Samsung level picture quality, you got to crush out some black levels to get that. It's not going to happen just natively because they love you so much and they're so nice and they're an industry best. And that's what I have a big problem with when we talk about Sony this year. And vivid mode is the only mode capable of getting anywhere near as bright as its competitors. Every other mode is dim versus vivid mode, which gives you a torch mode, and it's very bright. And that's my gripe. And so, again, that's how I arrived at the conclusion that the Samsung is literally just the better buy. And if I personally was in the market between either of these two TVs, I would end up going for the Samsung. Not only because of the reasons I listed, but also if you look at the stand difference, Sony has the widest stand of any TV manufacturers. Tabletopping it will be a nightmare. Okay? Samsung, not so much. It's a center console. It's a center pedestal type stand. You can put a soundbar underneath. Problem solved. You know what I mean? I'm just not seeing where Sony is meeting us where we need to be met. I mean, and Samsung was so intelligent, by the way, they didn't even block the remote RF. The radio frequency signal is literally off to the far end of the Samsung over here, so you can have a soundbar underneath. I mean, that was intelligent. And I think, again, the more you look at it and the more you go through all these examples, it'll be very, very clear that Sony literally has a very, very long way to go as far as getting back to the prestige they were at, the downgrades with the remote, the downgrades with literally everything that they have. I mean, at the end of the day, you can only say one thing about Sony. They've gotten complacent being told that they are the best year after year after year. And now this year you have to make a lot of sacrifices to get equivalent image quality on the competitors. And at the end of the day, that is not what you need to be having for a TV that at retail wanted $3,499 and now on sale is $2,200. It's just not keeping up. The sound quality is good out of the speakers, but comparatively to the Samsung, again, picture quality wise, again, for people who feel that we're augmenting or manipulating results, don't care enough to do that. I literally couldn't care less who wins. Who wins, whoever wins, that's who I buy. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, the Samsung S95F is definitely, undoubtedly, without, you can't lie about it. It's the winner. And what really fucks me up this year, more than anything, is I don't want to give Samsung the win. Here's this most important part. I want to fail Samsung more than anything. That's my bias, okay? I want to fail them. I can't fail them. I want so badly to give Samsung an F because I don't like the update bullshit that they pull. I don't like the fact that this year it's flatter than last year. I don't like the user interface this year that removes a very vital feature of renaming your HDMI inputs so that you can use your TV how you want to use it. There's a lot I don't like about Samsung this year, and I still can't fail them because even though they got a matte finished screen, they don't have Dolby Vision still, and they're not listening to their fans, they're still beating Sony at their best this year. Do you understand how absolutely humiliating that has got to be for the entire industry if they have any brain in their head? It's absolutely humiliating. You're getting absolutely paced by a TV that was so fucking lazy that it couldn't even outdo its predecessor. Don't get me wrong, the A95L beats the Sony Bravia 8 Mark II, but this level of flat was really bad, and it still has more contrast than what Sony is offering this year, and that for me is like, damn. Gotta taste a little humble pie on that one, I suppose, and just take that L that this year Sony didn't even deliver. I mean, I don't know what these companies are doing, why they're sleeping on the job, taking a piss, or whatever the hell it is they're doing, but I can safely say this. For 2025 and the options we have, the so-called king of OLED, at least when you're talking about the high end, they did get beaten by the Samsung S95F. Definitely. And I know for a fact the S95D would beat it because the F could not beat the D. So there's almost no point in even comparing that. But that being said, though, I'd love to know what you guys think about this in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching the #1 brand in honesty and trusting what I do here and just being a part of the community. And until the next video, I'll see you guys later.